Katie gave me a great topic. I don't think anybody's going to be in disagreement of what the value of health records are going to be, particularly electronic health records that can be easily accessed. So I'm going to take a little bit different approach. It seems like this afternoon we've identified two problems. And I just heard a great solution for one of those problems, and that's how to get this electronic ID into a repository, and into some sort of standardized repository that could be easily accessed by anyone. Along with that problem is how do we get our equine vets to post our Coggins test and our health records so that we can access that very easily for our exhibitors when we check in at our shows and on the backside. So my problem is not that one. I think that one's very solvable. I think we've got bright minds in here that can put the pieces together for some sort of federation effort to build that system. My challenge with a membership organization is how to convince them, as we spoke this morning, to chip their animals. And so we've talked all day about the potential challenges that we face in doing that. And so I'd like to give you just a little bit of perspective. And if we get some time this afternoon, this evening, get your input, feedback on the thought process that we're trying to go through here as we approach this first phase and this first step of introducing this technology to this big membership. We have a vast variety of use for the quarter horse. That picture there in team roping, just to give you an example, most of these horses, probably 90 to 95% of the team roping horses are registered quarter horses. Most of them are not transferred. In other words, we do not know the ownership of those horses. There's a theory out there that team ropers are a little bit like golfers. If they break their golf club, they just go get another one. And so, but there is an enormous value in these horses, and that is a growing industry within our Western Heritage segment. So we have a lot of interest in trying to trace these horses because they are high performers. We spend a lot of time, energy, and effort in breeding pedigree to get this type of ranch horse, and we'd like to get credit back to the breeder who raised that horse, and then it winds up trading hands about 6 or 7 times on its way to Vegas. Okay. Of course, we've got our elite performers, the high-end reiners. We've got a racing industry we'll talk a little bit about in just a minute. Our all-around Western riding, our Western Heritage events. I didn't put a picture in here, but barrel racing, similar to team roping, is a growing endeavor. Weekend warriors hitting these jackpot barrel racing events every weekend, or if not 2 or 3 times a week. It's easy to enter. You put your $50 in, you can take $500 home, and it is growing. And now with the leveling that they've introduced in that, where you can actually participate at a certain level, it's making not so fast horses worth a lot of money. And again, these are not typical AQHA members, but they're all riding an AQHA horse for the most part. And so we're interested in tracking these horses and the performance of those horses, and then celebrating those results in some sort of content management package. If you just look at the racing industry alone, I'll tell you our membership is about 12% of our membership is involved in racing. We sell about 3,500 horses a year, yearling sales. There's the top 10 yearling sales, and that's the majority of our racing industry. Last year they grossed about $46 million. On about 4% of what we register a year, grossed $46 million, on average about 14,000. So when we look at focus, this is an area that we think we can get some lift. That there's some immediate advantages. There was 15,000 starters, horses that started a race last year. And of course a horse will run several races during the year, and so there was 62,000 actual starts that horses were involved in. Gross purse was $127 million. The total betting handle on that's $300 million. So we're just a portion of the thoroughbred industry, but we're a significant portion of the value of our horses with just a small percentage of those elite racing horses within our membership. And so this is an area, and the reason we're looking at these numbers is because we saw the issue at Sunland this year. We want to really thank our first responders, state veterinarians, and our epidemiologists for jumping on that rapidly. But that's a pretty big industry that's at risk every day, and there's a lot of investment in there. And so there's our first level target to try to get this implemented. If you look at our performance horse industry, and I'm talking about our reiners and our cutters, for the most part, these are alliance partners. These are other organizations that are alliance partners with us. Some of their memberships, AQHA members, many of them are not. But they're all riding quarter horses, and we capture the data on the earnings from the results of these different events. And so on the top 13 sales last year, these would be pretty elite kind of sales. There was about $27 million in sales at an average of 17,000. So when we think about a $20 chip, putting it in actually getting it into the animal, on a $17,000 animal, that's pretty cheap insurance. I mean, when you get right down to it. And so we can probably get away with telling the health traceability story with those folks because their horses are worth so much, and it's an insurance issue. And perhaps they can get a break on their mortality insurance. But getting down below that in the middle tier is where it's going to be the challenge. Last year alone, AQHA had about nearly 1 million entries in show events around the country. That represented almost 2,900 individual events around the country. And so when you ask the question, should the industry attempt to get every backyard project horse chipped, my answer to that is no. That's not a reality today. If it takes 30 years, great. My answer to that is let's target those which are highest risk and that travel the most, because those are the horses that are traveling all over the country, being exposed and commingled every day. There's a huge investment at stake in that. And so if we can get these 1 million entries taken care of at those 2,900 events, we've done something. In my mind, we've done something miraculous, because probably when we get to that level, the content management and the data management that's behind it is going to be significant, and it's going to give us great marketing lift. Okay, so that's my thought in terms of trying to target AQHA members. If you look at just pure quarter horse ownership, and we dive into our database and estimate how many owners might own a quarter horse based on registry and transfer records over a number of years, and we estimate the average horse is going to be in that 18 to 20 year peak upper end age bracket. We estimate a little over 800,000 owners of a quarter horse out there, and of course our membership's only about 250,000. And so to chip all those horses, we're getting outside of our membership, and that's going to be really difficult in our mind. Just look at Facebook likes. I mean, just people who are interested in a quarter horse or an AQHA, there's 1 million of them out there. And so the power of social media and trying to interact, a marketing strategy, I think is going to be heavily targeted through Facebook likes. So a year ago, and y'all know if you read my bio, I've been in the equine industry specifically for the last 18 months, and I moved over from livestock and have seen what we tried to get accomplished over in the livestock sector. But when I came over, Dr. Jerry Black reached out to me, And he presented the case that y'all were talking about today and that many of you were involved in trying to contain. And that case scared me. And so as a result, we went to our executive committee and immediately approved our portion of the funding for the EDCC. But that little outbreak is the model we're going to be discussing with our racing group and our competition group, because it impacted 18 other premises, right? 18 other states were impacted through that National Cutting Horse Association Western Championship outbreak. We don't even know the true economic impact of what that outbreak caused. We know what it caused in terms of horse mortality. We know what it caused in terms of how many were exposed, 28 primary exposed confirmed EHV1 cases, 26 of them went EHM, 29 secondary and tertiary exposed, over 2,000 primary, secondary, and tertiary exposed, and I'm thankful again for our state health and epidemiology folks that were pouncing on this thing trying to locate these horses. I'm grateful to you. 13 euthanized animals, and I'm telling you, those NCHA horses aren't cheap. And you folks that were involved in this at the veterinary level spent over 5,800 state and federal resource hours according to your own reports. So that in and of itself is a big number. But it does not come close to addressing the cost to the industry from the number of shows that were canceled over about a 12-week period. We know that small weekend shows bring anywhere from $300,000 to $1.3 million to a local economy. That's Zoetis math, if you look at some of their reports. I can tell you that our World Show in Oklahoma City brings $5 million to the Oklahoma City economy over about a 10-day period. So if you think about just on average that the canceled events could have been in the neighborhood of $1.5 to $2.5 million, a tremendous cost to our industry, and that doesn't include the folks who didn't go to the shows that were exhibiting because they're afraid to get their horse exposed. And so this is a big deal. And this is the story that we're going to have to talk to our larger investors in our business. I'm a big fan of the EDCC, and I get these reports every day from the office, and it's an eye opener because you get an email every day from the office. And I want to say I'm grateful that we have this, and I hope we're catching the majority. I hope we're catching over 95%. But if I look at the 2016 report, there were 267 reported outbreaks. And if one of those outbreaks could have caused an Ogden, Utah event, it's huge. I mean, that's the flashpoint. There were 267 of them. And again, thank goodness we have good folks in our veterinary field that are pouncing on these. 113 were West Nile. For those of you who are involved in this business, you already know this, but I think it's interesting to see the frequency of these types of events. And so how am I going to approach our folks? We're going to tell them the honest God truth, and that is you're at risk every day you go to an event. What we have to do is develop the biosecurity plan that limits your risk. And so that's part of our team effort here today, is to try to create that biosecurity event. Now, this morning I talked about other industries. I truly believe that from our standpoint, trying to get member engagement on this, it's the value proposition we talked about this morning. And I talked about supply chain. And supply chain is a big deal in food safety. But if you ask the average consumer in America what they think about food safety, they don't think anything about it. They expect it, right? It's a liability issue on food companies and retailers and restaurateurs. And so it's very important to limit risk through traceability, and I think the food industry has done a heck of a lot in adopting this technology. And we talked about the Walmart effort this morning and what they've been able to accomplish. How many of you shop at Macy's? This is an interesting little statistic. Came out in October, was launched in January this month, 2017. Bill Conley, Macy's Senior VP of Logistics, said that Macy's will implement 100% RFID items on an item-by-item basis. So you pick up underwear, T-shirt, pair of shoes, whatever you buy at Macy's, it will have an individual radio frequency identifier on it. And why do you suppose that is? And how will that relate to us? Probably a lot of theft in Macy's. There's a lot of real-time distribution issues that they're dealing with, out of stocks, where they can replenish very, very quickly. They can track every item through their system. They know what their sales are the second they sell. They know exactly where that thing was made, where it came from, its specifications, and it's no longer on the rack. And that creates a lot of efficiency. Do we believe that that can help our industry in terms of efficiency, in terms of checking in animals, in terms of moving them through a system, getting their Coggins report? I heard somebody say this morning at Colorado, I just love the idea of that card where you could plug it into a system and it prints out your stalls. It tells you what time your class is going to get kicked off. I mean, those are brilliant value adds that I think our industry, Dr. Heckendorf mentioned that this morning, I think our industry can take advantage of. How many of you run marathons? I know Dr. Tom does, or he used to. You got a marathon in you now that you got the knee fixed? If you're a runner, you will know if you go to New York City Marathon or the Chicago Marathon today, they used to put RFIDs in the shoes and they'd fall out. So today they have them in their bibs, their numbered bibs. In 2014, Chicago City Marathon launched RFID technology. Here's what it's done for the marathon. They know exactly when that runner started. They pick up each runner's time. There's 40,000 runners. 40,000 runners. They pick up their time every 5 clicks, every 5 kilometers. That information is beamed up into an application, and if you sign up for that application with your cell phone number, it will kick off to you your buddy's time and where they are in the race. Okay? That has been used for the last 3 years. It's used in every marathon today. I think it's remarkable. It's remarkable technology. Does that fit into our wheelhouse, into our industry? Absolutely. I keep bugging Matt Iliano. I said, Matt, what if we had readers every 25 yards that could actually reach out there and catch a reed 15 feet out? And we knew exactly the speed of that horse the first 25 meters, the next 50 yards, the next 75 yards, or on a 7 furlong. I mean, what could we do with training regimes if we could catch the speed and the time at various increments? We wouldn't even need human callers to call the race. It'd be electronically called, That's a possibility. Maybe it's a pipe dream, but I'd like to know what horses are quickest out the gate in our quarter horse world. Because normally if you're quickest out the gate, you got the best chance to get there first. So I want to know what's quick out the gate and fades. That might be a good roping horse. We can repurpose him someday. Attendee Tracking. How many of you have been to an IT convention, a geek convention? Man, they are fun, aren't they, Summer? You go to an IT convention, well, besides the adult beverage, you'll get a badge, you will sign in, and you will fill out all of your information on an iPad. And then they will tag you with an RFID. And there are readers, you don't know where they are, but there are readers all over that trade floor. And they are watching where you stop. And they are collecting data on who you're talking to. And the vendors buy into that data because they want to know what you're interested in. And so to be a vendor on that trade floor, you're spending a lot of money to be there, but you're also buying who here is looking at us and what else are they looking at. And how could that potentially benefit our businesses? I'm not sure yet, but that's intelligence. It's artificial intelligence. It's ET, but I'm quite certain that that kind of information can be put into a content management, and we can begin to kick out information to our membership that they're interested in at real-time speed. Library systems. How many of you have seen these? You've seen Redbox, but there are actual library kiosks with an RFID on the spine of the book that will track that book. They know you have it. You can turn it back in. There's libraries all over the country where you're checking out your own book now these days. Very interesting technology, but this is, again, inventory control. Who has it? Who's the owner? Who's the leaser of that book? How long have they had it? And when are we going to get it back? And if you compare that type of theory with what we're needing, it's very similar. Who owns this horse? Is this person that's on this horse the owner? Or is it somebody that's leasing this horse? Are we loaning these horses out to be ridden by others? Are we recruiting others to our industry by letting them ride our horse? There's just a whole lot of different things that we might be able to do that are similar than this. Now, this one is the one I love. The big casinos have an enormous laundry bill. Can you imagine 3,000 employees all in uniform? An enormous laundry bill. Can you imagine what the sorting cost would be to make sure that that garment got back to the right person? Because that person owns that garment. There are now textile RFIDs that eliminated the need for sorting and can actually track how often that garment's been used, the wear on that garment. Do we need to change the fabric in that garment? And, maybe it says something about the person who's wearing it. It certainly is tracking what's getting stolen and how often, right? But if you think about what RFID did to just laundry in big casino business, I imagine there was immense savings in what the MGM folks are doing and Treasure Island and those folks. So I just threw up a few of these, and not all of our sponsors today are on this, but I can only imagine that once we connect the dots, the network is beginning to evolve here through these discussions, and I believe that our veterinary community, along with our ID community, can come together and create that silo that works for everyone on the health record. Our job is going to be linking our registry and our individual horse to that silo, bringing that together in competition, and then tracking the performance of that horse. And to me, that's the magic formula. And by introducing these value adds, I believe we're going to make some progress. I don't know how fast. I don't even want to predict, Katie, what success is. I just want to get everybody on board and at least thinking about it, and then we can take those steps forward over the next 12 months to try to engage. So Zoetis is one of our corporate sponsors at AQHA, and they kick around this EQ stable, which I really, really like. And for those who download this EQ stable, and if you're a Zoetis customer, what I like about it is they send notifications out when it's time to vaccinate. And so we all get notifications, whether you're a Bleacher Report sports nut like I am, and you're wanting to know, how and when the Dallas Cowboys got beat this weekend, and it kicks you a notification. I think it's really interesting to use this kind of technology to kick notifications out when there is a potential outbreak in your backyard, what to be aware of, when you need to vaccinate, your high-risk season. Because, it's out of sight, out of mind for our average hobbyist as to when those things are supposed to happen, and nice little reminders maybe can get us there. So Steve Jobs was a master of development and marketing, and I love what he said. It's really hard to design products in a focus group. Everybody's got a different opinion of what that should look like. A lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. And I think we're kind of in that stage. We know what we want it to do. We don't really know what it's supposed to look like. But we also know that there's going to be some bright minds come together and just bring it all together. And then when they see what can be built off of that, that's where we're going to get uptake. Because people are going to look at that and say, I I want that. That's what I want. You know, that's what makes me content with my horse project, because now I'm tied to the rest of the world, and I can also be horseback in the woods, and I can turn in all my miles and record my pace through a trail ride, and it lifts that information up to a cloud, and if I ride so many hours and so many miles, I might get a saddle blanket as a prize. You know, those are the kind of things that I think are going to entice our folks to get engaged. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I'm learning a great deal. I can't thank you enough for the invitation.